Fun fact, planet Earth is 4.5 billion years old. Mankind, about 140,000 years old. Let me put that in perspective. If you condense the Earth's lifespan into 24 hours, that's one full day, then we have been here on this planet for, drum roll please, 3 seconds. 3 seconds. And look what we've done. We have modestly named ourselves Homo sapiens, meaning wise man. But is man really so wise? Smart, yes, and it's good to be smart, but not too smart for your own good. Yes, we have split the atom. Yes, we build clever machines that navigate the universe in search of new homes, but at the same time, those atoms we split created nuclear warfare. In our quest to explore the galaxy, rejects and neglects the home that we have here now, so no, that cannot be wisdom. Wisdom is different. While intelligence speaks, wisdom listens, and we willingly covered our ears to Mother Nature's screams and closed our eyes to all of her help-wanted signs. Wisdom knows that every action has an equal and opposite reaction, so if we were wise, we would not be shocked when we see storms that are stronger than ever before, or more drought, hurricanes, and wildfire than ever before, because there's more pollution than ever before, more carbon, more trees cut down than ever before. At a record pace, we have increased the extinction of animals by 1,000 times the normal rate. What a feat. In the next 10 to 100 years, every beloved animal character in every children's book is predicted to go extinct. Lions gone, rhinos gone, tiger, gorilla, elephant, polar bear gone. In 3 seconds. Species that have been here longer than us will be gone because of us. In this 3 seconds. In an existence shorter than a Vine video, we turn the circle of life into our own personal conveyor belt. Somebody, anybody help. We were given so much, the only planet in this solar system with life. I mean, we are 1 in a million. No, actually, scientifically, we are 1 in a billion, trillion. That's a 1 followed by 33 zeros. And I don't want to get too spiritual, but how are we not a miracle? We are perfectly positioned to the sun so we don't burn, but not too distant so we don't turn to ice. Goldilocks said it best, we are just right. This paradise where we are given medicine from trees, not coincidentally, but because like the song says, we are family. Literally, everything, every species is connected genetically, from the sunflower to the sunfish. And this is what we must recognize before it's too late, because the real crisis is not global warming, environmental destruction, or animal agriculture. It is us. These problems are symptoms of us, byproducts of us. Our inner reflection, loss of connection has created this misdirection. We have forgotten that everything contributes to the perfection of Mother Nature. Corporations keep us unaware and disconnected, but they have underestimated our strength. Contrary to popular belief, millions are waking up out of their sleep, seeing our home being taken right up under our feet. We cannot allow our history to be written by the wicked, greedy, and loony. It is our duty to protect Mother Nature from those who refuse to see her beauty. Call me crazy, but I believe we should have the right to eat food that's safe, with ingredients we can pronounce. Drink water that is clean, marvel at trees, breathe air free of toxins. These are natural rights, not things that can be bargained for in Congress. See, they want you to feel powerless, but it has been said that something as small as the flutter of a butterfly's wing can cause a typhoon halfway around the world. But when enough people come together, we too will make waves and wash the world into a new era filled with love and connection, freedom for all without oppression. But it is up to you, yes, you watching this behind this screen, to make the effort, because time is of the essence, and only together can we make it to the 4th second.
I knew nothing about mandatory sentencing laws before my brother was arrested for growing marijuana. Jeff was looking at 5 years in federal prison. I couldn't believe it.
The judge said at sentencing, this is not what I would do. He was clear about it, that it was, not the right sentence, but he had no choice.
We saw this powerful law completely misused.
Then I started hearing people saying, my son's in prison for 17 years, my husband's in prison for 10 years, my wife is in prison for 5 years, and your heart just started sinking about how much pain there was, with so many people serving so much time, and the families just struggling to deal with it. And so we started Families Against Mandatory Minimums.
FAM was started in the early 1990s. We met Julie then. She brought families to Washington to talk about the effect of these laws. And so it turned for me from an academic interest and concern to a human problem that we needed to address.
I was actually convicted of conspiracy. My sentence was 19 and a half years. I actually spent 8.5 years total incarcerated until I received the presidential pardon.
Those who favor reforming our federal minimum mandatory sentencing laws are not against punishment. They're just in favor of the right punishment. This is simply an American issue. It's a human issue. It's a common sense issue.
Families Against Mandatory Minimums were bringing the families to the forefront, sharing the stories, and essentially sharing how this was impacting people across racial lines. It was impacting people around the country. And so who would have thought the Tea Party and the Progressive Caucus would come together and say, maybe we need to look at the prison industrial complex. Maybe we need to look at mass incarceration.
FAM, I think, in the first instance, always focuses on human beings, on individuals, family members, puts a human dimension on sentencing. That is critical. In the second instance, they have worked very effective coalitions with members of Congress, with other groups who support sentencing reform in a very effective way over their 25-year history. So they are a very effective organization. They are diligent. They don't give up. They're persistent. And that's what you need to accomplish sentencing reform.
FAM has played an important role in this process and is just getting started in the sense that there's so much good that is now happening as a result of FAM's efforts over the last 25 years.
When you talk to somebody who benefited from the reform you passed, it's the most rewarding thing in the world. 77% of the public responded that they want to see mandatory minimums eliminated for nonviolent offenders. Across the country, there is a call for change.
Imagine if tomorrow we cured cancer and in 100 years there were still 1 million kids dying of cancer. It would be unthinkable. But that's the situation we find ourselves in with water.
By 2025, 1.8 billion people will be living in water-stressed regions.
We are reaching a perfect storm in terms of water.
The reason you need to care about the water crisis is because it's going to directly affect you and your family. We're on the brink of being hopeless, but we're not there yet.
We break down the barriers between people and safe water and sanitation.
We envision a day when everybody has access to clean water and sanitation, and we envision that in our lifetime.
People who are really struggling with drought or deteriorating water quality, those are the people on the edges and the fringes that are really innovating.
We just came from a very dry season, so this was the only source of drinking water for these children.
The water we have today is the water we've always had. We use it and then we throw it away. Nature doesn't do that.
Everything that you need to stay alive except carbon is in your waste. It's in your feces, in your urine, and in the breath that comes out of you.
Toilet to tank is really what we're doing here. It was always my dream. I can take my wastewater, put it in my car, and drive off into the sunshine.
It breaks my heart that we have the solutions and then we can't get them out fast enough.
This can happen in our lifetime. This has to happen in our lifetime, or we are looking at a very different world
for our children.
How lucky are we that we're the ones who get to solve this? In 100 years, people are going to wish they were alive and they could solve a problem this big.
It is time for Americans to find out the truth about poverty for all Americans. The growing gap between the rich and the poor in this country is a direct result of policy decisions, not the immorality and the lack of personal work of poor people. Policy decisions made here in Washington and in our state capitals, but those decisions have been supported by well-funded myths. Corporate interests have sent their representatives here to preach personal responsibility and the danger of government intervention. But the truth is we must take a collective responsibility for the inequality, the unjust laws and systems created. God did not make us poor. Greed and abuse and power make us poor.
I don't find anywhere in the scripture where Jesus said that it was Caesar's job to feed the poor and to clothe the widows and to take care of the orphans. He said it was the church's. It's the church's responsibility. It's the community's responsibility. It's your neighbor's responsibility. It's your responsibility as a neighbor to do those things.
First of all, it's interesting that you all would define yourself as Caesar. That in itself is kind of strange. I mean, we need to stop for a minute to even hear that.
Yeah.
We haven't read the 2,000 scriptures in the Bible that talk about how societies have supposed to treat the poor, the immigrant, the least of these, and left out. And you don't know that Jesus started his first sermon with good news to the Patokos. That's a Greek word which means those who have been made poor by economic systems. I mean, it really is shocking that folk are saying the same thing that we heard people say about slavery. Slaves just work hard and wait. Civil rights, we don't need to be involved, just work hard and wait. Social Security, you know, same people are against Social Security, and they say God was against it. It is bothersome that in the 21st century, we still have these weak, tired old mythologies, lying about the war on poverty when the Russell Sage Foundation actually says that it did decrease poverty, but we left the field. So I would say to all of us, Democrats and Republicans, we brought you people, Republicans, Democrats, whites and black, see the people, stop just talking about I know poverty, and hear what these folk are saying and put together a full plan to deal with this issue. This is traumatic to see this happening in America today, that people would stick with their partisan line and ignore the people that are really hurting.
Cuando el rey Nimrod al campo salía, miraba en el cielo, en la estrellería, vino un luz santa en la llorería, que había de nacer. Abraham vino, al rey querido, al rey bendito, luz de Israel. Abraham vino, al rey querido, al rey bendito, luz de Israel. Luego escumó, recomendaba que toda mujer que preya te quedara, si no pariera, punto la matara, que había de nacer. Abraham vino, al rey querido, al rey bendito, luz de Israel. Abraham vino, al rey querido, al rey bendito, luz de Israel. Ay, 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 ay. luce di terra che lo bresciara e de día en día ella preguntaba ¿para qué te tienes la cara desmutada? Ella ya sabía el bien que tenía. Abraham vino, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Abraham vino, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Abraham vino, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Abraham vino, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Ay, 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 ay,
Savannah is a historical southern town. We are a small city, but a very important city in the South because we are a port city.
Today, the predominantly African American community living near Savannah's port is experiencing the brunt of climate change, pollution, and environmental racism. The community faces severe flooding, poor air quality, lead poisoning, and exposure to nuclear and radioactive materials.
We're about 125 miles downriver from the Savannah River site. And the Savannah River site is a part of the Department of Energy's nuclear weapons production facility or complex. We woke up one morning after Christmas and 20,000 picocuries of tritium had leaked from the Savannah River site, which is located in Aiken, South Carolina, down to our river. First of all, we didn't know what a picocurie was, let alone tritium.
Community members around Savannah's port were suffering from severe health problems.
Generations of their families had worked at these facilities. They had no understanding about why am I experiencing these kinds of cancers? Why is there so much asthma amongst our young people? What's happening with our elders with all these respiratory diseases?
Black Americans are twice as likely as white Americans to die from asthma. Advocates blame industries near minority neighborhoods.
There were few communities, few black communities, few people of color communities really raising the nuclear issue related to weapons production. We decided that we would become champions, if you will, of these neighborhoods.
In 1990, Dr. McLean and her community created the Harambee House Citizens for Environmental Justice to fight against toxic pollution and environmental racism.
So our mission right now, and it has always been, to build the capacity of regular people to engage in any decision-making process that would impact their lives.
Ready to go! Fire!
We are there to make sure that people have the capacity to exercise their democratic right to have voice.
For more than 30 years, the Harambee House has provided community members with the tools to be civic leaders and agents of change within their own neighborhoods.
If we can get our cities and our counties to reduce their greenhouse emissions, to reduce their carbon footprint, along with the communities being engaged fully, oh boy, we will shout, glory, hallelujah, we've made it.
No community should be left behind. Savannah's port communities deserve to be protected. No one should have to choose between their quality of life, health, and work. For more information about the Harambee House, visit theharambeehouse.net. And to learn more about securing a just climate future for all communities, visit ajustclimate.org.
People say cancer is a death sentence and, oh, why me? I never went through any of those things because it pushed me into my purpose. Whenever little phenomenons or stuff happening here in the island, I call it island magic. Yeah, it's just that special something that you get when you come to the Bahamas. My whole take on life shifted going through cancer. My case was so unique. The cancer had eaten away all of the knee. Even though that was absolutely devastating, it gave me what I needed to push forward. I've always been an athlete, and so I decided to really get back into sports. The first triathlon that we had in the Bahamas, I won a trophy. It said, physically challenged athlete. I was hooked. I'm an athlete. That's a level of insanity. You're going to put yourself through some things. You're going to have to do mind over matter when your body's not working or it's aching or your muscles are tired. Being a para-athlete, okay, that's like crazy on steroids.
And bring it home and rest. Inhale, take it home.
And now I am the first para-triathlete in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. The purpose that is being revealed for my life is you can't stay inside. Even if I want to stay inside, even if I'm feeling depressed or I'm going through anxiety, I start to think about all these people who are sitting in their home, hidden. And I say, no, you have to get out there. Being an amputee in the disability community, it's the most marginalized grouping in the world. I can swim from here to there. My long-term goal is to become a disability lawyer. I know that everything that's happening to me is designed for my growth. It is designed exactly as it should, and therefore all is well. I've come too far to take any stance other than go, Aaron, go.
I'm Dwayne Betts, and I'm a poet. On December 7th, 1996, I was a 16-year-old honor student headed to college for all intents and purposes. On December 9th, 1996, I was locked up and I was headed towards pleading guilty to carjacking and spending the next 8.5 years in prison. And that really is the start of my journey as an intellectual and the start of my journey as a poet. For as long as I can remember, I've been writing poems. Once I was in prison and I had a real need to articulate what it meant to be confined and to recognize myself as being a part of, this huge statistic of young black men in prison. I was just looking for a means to communicate. And one day somebody slid a book under my cell and it was Black Poets by Dudley Randall. And this was really an anthology that covered, from Phyllis Wheatley to the late 1960s. And so I'm reading this poetry and I come across Etheridge Knight. And it was particularly Etheridge Knight that gave me the idea that poetry could give a voice to someone who doesn't have a voice, because Etheridge Knight was writing poems really about prison and poems about his life as somebody who had made numerous mistakes, and he was writing poems that spoke to that aspect of life. And I thought that, well, I could do this. I wrote a poem and I submitted it and I got it published. I remember the moment that I got the acceptance letter, though. I ran around prison as if I won the lottery, because poets crave audiences, at least me as a poet. I think more than anything else, I created the ability to execute a line in the right way and to write a poem that conveys something of what I feel to somebody else. For me, poetry is all about clarity. The lyric is all about conveying that emotion distilled to its various essence. As I stand here at the edge of hell in Harlem and look out on the world, I wonder, what will I do in the face of what I remember? The most important thing that I've done since I've been out of prison is sort of dedicate myself to going to college. You meet this huge myriad of people from different cultures, different backgrounds, and you get to engage with them on a personal level without a lot of times having to be bothered with the day-to-day pressures of making a living. When you're a student, all of those difficulties and problems and things you have to deal with get muted so that you can just focus on some, I think, the more important things in life, and you can really discover who it is you are and who it is you want to be. And that's the knowledge that you get to carry with you for the rest of your life. Whereas if you don't go to college or if you don't finish, you don't really get a chance to get that knowledge. The things that I learned as a student, the conversations that I had with my professors, not even about the class, but about life, that experience was invaluable, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
An estimated 10,000 people are unhoused in Oakland, California. They don't have safe ways to cook or store fresh food. Basic first aid and medical services are hard to find. There's no easy access to bathrooms or showers. We are building an alternative.
This project represents hope. How do we actually create homes, for the houseless?
Cob on Wood is a project that grew out of the needs of the residents of Wood Street.
This is one of the reasons why we need a kitchen, because this is our kitchen right here. This is very toxic, this is very dangerous.
So here we have our nice refrigerator that is always stocked to the point of busting out. Now that we can have fresh vegetables and cook them right, I think people will start getting a little bit more healthy.
I've just lived my life in there since you guys did finished it, because I'm in there like every meal. I'm in there all the time, because it's great. I can eat again.
When you're living with the stress of what you're going to eat or how you're going to care for your body in a very basic way, it leaves you unavailable to think about larger things like how one might get a job or start to navigate the process of applying for housing.
This is the new clinic. So we're brainstorming on what needs to be here. We're talking about all the various supplies that would be needed and the care that can be provided.
People out here have barriers to being able to access care in a way that feels dignified. And so it's important that there are places like this where they can be honest and not feel shut down.
We were like, okay, well, how do we actually get resources back in the hands of the people, whether it be the medicine, whether it be the food, whether it be like just a sense of dignity.
We've got a whole lot done in just a couple months. It's pretty incredible, actually, how fast these structures have gone up. We started off just building the kitchen, doing it framed with the pallets and filled with trash that was here at the encampment. What's really amazing about these structures too, they're super low cost, they're fire resilient, they're very well insulated, and they are great for community participation.
Anytime you have an artistic event happening in your life that you're in full control of or any way near control, you have a changing experience with it, of course.
To show unhoused folks that they are deserving of something artisan and intentional, and that hundreds of people are donating their time to build with them, for them. It's planting the seed of them going on an upward trajectory, like, I am worth it, I deserve this, this is for me, let me join it and boost others up in the same way.
We're hoping that this project will really serve as a design, as a model that can be duplicated.
We're serving 150 people in one encampment with a fraction of the money that it takes government entities to do similar things, and we're doing it rapidly.
I see things like this as being part of that big solution. It's that first step towards being able to live in dignity.
The residents of Wood Street are now under threat of eviction, and these community support structures that serve them are set to be demolished by mid-May. Help us stand up to Caltrans and convince the City of Oakland to support our efforts.
David Keene was the two-time president of the National Rifle Association. He continues to be a staunch defender of your Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. Therefore, it is my privilege to introduce to you David Keene.
Let me begin by telling you what an honor it is to be here to help celebrate your graduation. Picture for a minute the young James Madison, for whom this school is named. This year you focused on one of the most important of Madison's amendments, the Second Amendment. There are some who continue to fight to gut the Second Amendment, but I'd be willing to bet that many of you will be among those who stand up and prevent them from succeeding.
911, what is your emergency?
Defending it is a challenge and a duty that Americans like you
Shut up. They were shooting into my classroom.
who understand what has made the country the envy of the world must accept as their own.
Okay, is anybody injured? Yes, a lot of blood. Please help, please.
An overwhelming majority of you will go on to college, while others may decide their dream dictates a different route to success.
School. Okay, do you know how many people are injured?
So my advice to you is simple enough. Follow your dream and make it a reality.
My son is in Stillman Douglas. My daughter just texted me from school. She's at Stillman Douglas.
And never for a minute doubt that you can achieve that dream. Thank you.
Satan, the beast crunching sinners' bones in his subterranean lair. Lucifer, the fallen angel raging against the established order. Mephistopheles, the trickster striking deals with unsuspecting humans. These three divergent devils are all based on Satan of the Old Testament, an angelic member of God's court who torments Job in the book of Job. But unlike any of these literary devils, the Satan of the Bible was a relatively minor character, with scant information about his deeds or appearance. So how did he become the ultimate antagonist, with so many different forms? In the New Testament, Satan saw a little more action, tempting Jesus, using demons to possess people, and finally appearing as a giant dragon who is cast into hell. This last image particularly inspired medieval artists and writers, who depicted a scaled, shaggy-furred creature with overgrown toenails. By the Renaissance, the devil started to assume a more human form. Artists painted him as a man with cloven hooves and curling horns, inspired by Pan, the Greek god of the wild. In his 1667 masterpiece, Paradise Lost, English poet John Milton depicted the devil as Lucifer, an angel who started a rebellion on the grounds that God is too powerful. Kicked out of heaven, this charismatic rebel becomes Satan and declares that he'd rather rule in hell than serve in heaven. Milton's take inspired numerous depictions of Lucifer as an ambiguous figure, rather than a purely evil one. Milton's Lucifer later became an iconic character for the Romantics of the 1800s, who saw him as a hero who defied higher power in pursuit of essential truths, with tragic consequences. Meanwhile, in the German legend of Dr. Faust, which dates to the 16th century, we get a look at what happens when the devil comes to Earth. Faust, a dissatisfied scholar, pledges his soul to the devil in exchange for bottomless pleasure. With the help of the devil's messenger, Mephistopheles, Faust quickly seizes women, power, and money, only to fall into the eternal fires of hell. Later versions of the story show Mephistopheles in different lights, In Christopher Marlowe's account, a cynical Dr. Faustus is happy to strike a deal with Mephistopheles. In Johann Wolfgang von Goethe's version, Mephistopheles tricks Faust into a grisly deal. Today, a Faustian bargain refers to a trade that sacrifices integrity for short-term gains. In stagings of Goethe's play, Mephistopheles appeared in red tights and cape. This version of the devil was often played as a charming trickster, one that eventually paraded through comic books, advertising, and film in his red suit. These 3 takes on the devil are just the tip of the iceberg. The devil continues to stalk the public imagination to this day, tempting artists of all kinds to render him according to new and fantastical visions.
Caminando de Venezuela.
Niños pasando hambre, sin pañal, sin leche, sin comida, pura lenteja.
Veníamos caminando y la niña venía que no podía. Y me la monté en el lomo con las maletas y a pie me dijeron que ahí vivía un refugio de 20 segundos. ¿Vieron algo distinto? ¡Ay!
¡Aquí!
¡Pollo, carne! Cuando llegué mi bebé tenía 3 meses. Me pusieron un pollo. Cuando yo comí me desmayé.
The Garhwal region of India is tucked up from where the Ganges hits the foothills of the Himalayas on up to Tibet. And it was the old trade route, and as a pilgrimage route, it took about 3 months. And it's really interesting that the economy and spiritual life in that area are all tied together. So when the great reformers, Ram, Krishna, Sankaracharya, came through there and left their treasures, which we were literally in pursuit of, they were not only bringing spiritual rejuvenation, they were bringing economic rejuvenation.
So you think that if a person walks along the yatra on the pilgrimage route, he actually feels more spiritual satisfaction?
Spiritual satisfaction.
We began our trek up to Lopal by foot and by pony because this is one area that's exactly like the entire region was up until the 1960s. The only way you can go to this pilgrimage site is by foot or by pony. There's no cars here. And it's been like that for at least 3,000 years. Here we are. This is the summit of Lopal, and there's a little temple there to Lakshman that Hindus have been coming for well over 3,000 years. And there was a little statue there. A few years ago, someone wanted to replace that little temple. They broke the statue. A week later, the man who did it was dead.
We are on the top of the world, and all the peaks are covered with snow. And it's amazing to see that even at these heights and passing a great difficulty on a great train, people still remember God.
For millenniums, people of all faiths have been coming into these mountains, which to them is the center of life of the planet, representing the higher consciousness of a man. They're coming to be purified, but all I know is I'm not pure. I was cold, and my socks were wet.